Looking back at that relationship, right? At that moment, it was cheating. But now when I look back, it was a lot more than just cheating, right? When I analyzed my partner's life at that time, like when I present day analyze his life at that time, I'm like, wow, but he was like, I could have anticipated it, right?
Tell you, I wasn't always this guy I am. I was in love probably with more masculine women who provided, who took care of anything. I wanted to be that Peter Pan, who didn't have to make the money and stuff. And my own healing simultaneously, without me forcing it, made me take accountability of my own energy.
Like today when I was on call with a friend and we were talking about how your mind can become your biggest enemy when you start to make assumptions.
When you have the supporting energy of being authentic, who you are, who I am, who she is, when you have the supporting energy of us feeling like we can be our best selves with each other, then falling in love becomes easier. And then committing to that love, committing to that relationship becomes even easier.
There's one thing I would tell myself, that time when we were in the long distance and we weren't talking as much, right? And I was like, oh, do I have to chase after this person and everything? But I would constantly tell myself one thing, which is really funny and very random. But you don't tell your parents or your siblings they're your siblings, right? You don't go every day wanting to prove that you're their child or you're their sibling. So why do you have to prove it to someone else?
Welcome back, everybody, and namaste. Welcome back to another episode of the Turning Wounds to Wisdom podcast. First, let me apologize to all of you because I know there's been a big break in time for almost the last 2 months, but it came with a good reason, and that is that I made $1 million. No, I got married. And so I was so busy with everything. I had to go back to India. I don't know if you saw some of the pictures on our Instagram or the website. It was really beautiful. And it was an amazing experience. I missed you guys. I missed talking here. My face hurt from all the smiling and not the talking, which was a big change for once. But I'm really excited about today's episode because today's episode, we're going to talk a lot about relationships and we're going to talk a lot about commitment, the commitment in relationships. And as you know, this podcast is turning your wounds to wisdom. So we're going to talk about what our past experiences were in this case with commitment, with relationships, and how we could learn from them to move to the future relationships. I also have a very, very special guest that I'm going to introduce in just a minute. I'm really excited to do this interview with her. As you can see, it's a change in setting from my usual space because I wanted to invite this guest to do it. I will honestly say that this person, the guest I'm going to bring on, has been an unconscious mentor to me, someone who I have learned more from, I think, about myself and relationships than maybe some of my most powerful mentors who I've gone to for work and for coaching. So I'm very honored to bring her on. I'm very excited to bring her on because the guest for today, drum roll please, is my wife.
Hi!
I know. We've actually never recorded anything together before professionally, whether it's like a podcast or an interview, until last week. My wife's a model. I don't know if you folks know that, but we both recorded this video for Coca-Cola as in almost as a casting, right?
Yeah.
As a casting thing,
An audition.
an audition. And we both are going to be in an advertisement for Coca-Cola. So, we're gaining this power couple status where now I decided to bring her on my podcast as well. And we're going to be talking about amazing things. But the reason I brought her on is because, well, she's going to give you some of the dirty insights into me and the real truth behind the scenes. Super dirty. Okay, let's narrow. Let's calm down on the dirty just a little bit. But before we move forward, without further ado, welcome Ayesha, my darling wife. And for the cameras, let's do a little. Not really. We do this all the time. But I'm really happy to have you here. Actually, my wife is one of the strongest reasons I have a podcast. She's always wanted me to encourage me to have this podcast, to speak to people, to offer them what I've learned. And in speaking to her, I've realized that even though she's 10 years younger than me, by the way, and she doesn't actively pursue any sort of inner work necessarily, she has her own way of her journaling, meditations, she still teaches me so much. So for today's podcast, I thought she'd be a great teacher, a great value add in terms of commitment.
I was just going to say, you've never said so many nice things about me at once, but you have.
Don't listen to her, guys. It's not true. Well, let's dive in already. Ayesha, first, you also just got married because if I got married, then you got married. How was your wedding? Did you have a good time?
I think it was the best day of my life. And as you know, baby, I've been only watching the videos. Every day before I sleep, I watch it.
True
He
story.
refuses to watch it.
True story. I still haven't watched all my wedding videos.
But it's only because I think like it just brought together this energy of so many people that loved us and celebrated us and our love all together in one room. And I
Yeah.
think I really enjoyed that.
That's really beautiful. And it is true. You know, I've had so many people who said our wedding went by in a flash. I don't remember what happened. I was so stressed. Those truly were the best days of my life. And they were amongst the best experiences I've ever had. I say those because in India, we have 3 or 4 days that we get married over and not just the one. So, but it was a glorious experience.
No, it was amazing.
Yeah. And today, the podcast, Ayesha, is about commitment, right? It's about commitment. It's about, commitment primarily in relationships. So I want to ask you, what does commitment mean to you?
I think for me, commitment truly means that, showing up as your 100% in any circumstance in the relationship, but also knowing that sometimes it could be 40-60, right? And not holding that person accountable for like not showing up completely on those days, but instead showing up better for yourself. And that truly like brings out commitment. But I'm not saying like reduce your expectations and like settle for bare minimum. But I think like everyone should have expectations because that sets standards. But in other cases, like when you have that commitment, that's your person, right? That's someone you can count on, but you also need to show up 100% always, or even 60% when that person can't. And that's the commitment you make to each other.
So for you, a commitment is like a balance of what each person contributes to, let's say, the collective. And that even though some days you may feel like you can give 100% and contribute 100, some days, you contribute naturally like 40 or 60.
Yeah.
Because you have things going on in your life, right?
Exactly.
But I want to get a little deeper into what is commitment to you when it comes to love or a relationship. And you don't have to sound like a professor giving me the 60-40 stuff. They want to know the truth. Like for Ayesha, the person that she is, what is commitment for you in a relationship with love?
For me, commitment is showing up for the person. Like whether that's like sexually, physically, or emotionally. Like I'm a very physical person. Like I couldn't be with someone who wasn't physical because that for me would like stir the commitment and I'd be like, is this person truly committed? All of that. But in this sense, I feel like for me, commitment is waking up every morning, knowing that you have this support system that you do by your side, right? No matter if you sleep, having a fight or whatever, but when you wake up, you have this enthusiasm that you're dealing with life together almost.
Right.
Is that too lovey for the Inayats?
Excuse me, the Inayats is all about that kind of love, more from a healing perspective. But I like what you said is, you said something that struck me where you said it's waking up and knowing that commitment is the continuous decision every day when you wake up that you're going to journey with this person for like the rest of our life is what we hope for, right? So it's putting that active, conscious, would you say it is a conscious decision making?
Yeah.
Take, for example, when you're feeling 40, right? And you come into the relationship and your partner expects 100. Would you say that in those moments, you have to consciously either A, regulate and take care of yourself so you don't just react and say, I'm stressed, like leave me alone? And do you say you also have to consciously express to them that I'm not at my best, this is what I can give you? I don't know why you're smiling so much.
I smile because it's something I really worked on in our relationship, right? Knowing not to internalize moments. So that's why I smile.
Nice, I like that. Learning not to internalize moments. And here's something I want to say to you guys as a little snippet. If you think of commitment, commitment is generally not to a past, right? Commitment is to a future because you've already gone through the past. So commitment means you're actively choosing and making a decision to work on something in the future. Now, internalization, as we know, is the enemy of love very often, the enemy of safety, security, regulation. So if you're continuously internalizing, you're unconsciously breaking down or destroying your commitment because you want to actively work on this to create something beautiful. But if you're actively also internalizing, then you're breaking down little pieces of this. You're taking your partner's actions to mean something about you. Your partner's energy level of 40. This is something
Yeah.
that, anxious, avoidant kind of people experience
Right.
a lot. I think even in the start of our relationship,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, there are moments still.
Right. When I, for example, may be tired or fatigued, my nervous system when it's fatigued, it doesn't give a lot. It likes to be very quiet and stable. In the beginning, did you take those moments personally?
Very. And I thought it was something you had against me.
Right.
And even like today when I was on call with a friend and we were talking about how your mind can become your biggest enemy when you start to make assumptions, right? Like she was talking about something in her relationship and she's like, I feel really insecure about this. And I was like, but that's not even happened, right? Like it's something you're making up in your head. And that's the same how I would feel when we would go through those moments. I'd be like, why does he hate me?
Yeah. Funny. Why does he hate me? He's showing up 40% and we're married. I mean, I'm glad you explained it to that. And that's why I want to ask you another question. And most of my audience, I would say, are feminine. They're like women viewers. So I think what you have to say could resonate a lot with them. Yes, there are cultural, energetic differences. But in a relationship, in our relationship, this relationship, what do you want from us, from this relationship, for yourself?
I think what I want, as I said earlier, is that continuously feeling like I'm being chosen, right? But it's not just chosen by you, but chosen by myself as well, where I'm not internalizing your actions. Guys, I live with the inner yat, so I've inner healed a little bit.
I am going to be honest with you guys. She is the source of a lot of the content that comes my way because she says something and I'm like, I should write that down and make it a post. So that was really beautiful. And you said that it is not just the commitment to the partner, it is the commitment to yourself throughout that journey, right?
Yeah.
You used some words.
I
What were the
forgot.
words?
I was
Yeah,
really in
I'm
the
just
flow.
same. I know, I'm exactly the same. Oh my God. You know, what's so funny is this is a healing podcast, and I find that our energy is naturally so humorous and playful that I'm wondering if people who listen for the first time are like, oh, is this just a fun podcast? Is this what they do here? Yes, it is, but it's also really about the healing.
But if you're having fun while healing, might as well.
That's the best way, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
and actually that's a really good thing that takes me to maybe our next question, which is where, we could have, and in this case, you could have done some of the healing, especially in your past. So I want to ask you about the history of some of your past relationships. And don't worry, guys, I already know, I think I know this, so I'm waiting to be surprised. If I'm surprised here, look forward to me saying I'm single on my Instagram next week. No, I'm just kidding. But let's talk about some past relationships. Which relationship do you think maybe hurt you, but also inspired you the most? We'll start with the hurt part.
Right.
Okay?
I think it's the same relationship that hurts you and inspires you because when you're as hurt as you are, you
Right.
tend to want to grow from it, right?
Are you trying to steal my job here? or
No.
what's going on? Go on.
But I was in this relationship when I was around 17, still young enough to make stupid decisions, but for 3 years. And then when that ended, because he had cheated, I was like, oh my God, what is the world without this person, right? As most of us are. And I think it inspired me. I do think a lot of women, when you go through something really bad, you want to change your entire narrative, right? You want to
Right.
be this whole new person. You get the haircut, you get everything changed.
Right.
So I think I went completely in that direction as well.
Right.
And
Before we go into the direction you moved into, which I think is awesome, as you said, as a woman, sometimes you want to switch your identity almost.
Right.
Because you hope that, okay, if this didn't work, maybe
because
the
you
other side-
identify so much with the relationship, right?
That's a huge point, that you identify so much with a relationship that when the relationship ends, you no longer want to hold on to that identity.
Right.
Because you feel like that identity brought you pain. So now you want to create a new identity. Before we do the creating identity, what hurt you about that relationship?
I think my attachment to the person, because now when I think about it from a completely outsider's perspective and I'm reanalyzing it, almost like when I sit with my friends who have seen me from then and now, and they're like, oh my God, you've changed so much. Because I identified so much with that person that my whole life was about that person, my whole world, right?
Right.
And the other thing is when that's suddenly snatched from you, A, you lose your identity. B, you're also trying to figure out who you are, because we dated for 3 years and I was 20. And when you're 20, again, you're really conscious. You're conscious at every age, but like you're even more conscious. And then you're just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Then the other aspect of how did he cheat? Because I am not someone who's ever cheated. And like for me to even like understand that and comprehend that was very difficult.
Wow, that's huge. I have heard it before. So I mean, but I still sympathize, because cheating is something that's so hard to cope with, especially if you're on the receiving end. You know my history. I mean, all of you guys listening, I've spoken about this multiple times, but I am someone who's cheated on my partners before. And actually, this makes me ask you a really interesting question, because you know my past, right? And that I am someone who had cheated on someone. And yet you actively chose me. You said, I want to choose this person. You chose me, and you actively still choose me. But you were also someone who got hurt. Right. So now this is such a powerful question for you. Why did you choose me then? If maybe, and I told you this history before we made any major commitments, because I like now to be more transparent and honest. You know your history. So why did you still choose me?
I think even looking back at that relationship, right? At that moment, it was cheating. But now when I look back, it was a lot more than just cheating, right? When I analyzed my partner's life at that time, like when I present day analyze his life at that time, I'm like, wow, but he was like, I could have anticipated it, right?
Wow, you could have anticipated it.
Yeah, but I think I was avoiding the signs, everything as well, because you want to be in that whole dilemma that, oh, like nothing's going to happen. It only happens in other relationships, not mine. But I also see, excuse me, I also see the person you are now. And I tell you this, it's like 2 different lifetimes, right? You aren't the same person because of the growth you've had. And I really hope and do pray that that person's not the same person in their next relationship. Because even I'm not the same, so I can't expect you to be the same. And I think I chose you because once I did start my own healing, right, I went into this bubble of knowing that this is who I want, right? I don't want to identify with someone completely, but as funny as this sounds, I do want someone who has like the good attributes of my own dad. I've grown up with a very, as you know, your favorite person in the world.
I love your dad.
But like he's made me grow up in a way where my first experience with a man, a masculine, has always been a positive thing. It's never been like, he showed up and like, my father's very obsessed with me and I love it. But
he does say that she's the favorite amongst the kids.
I mean, you can say it very openly. Everyone knows. But the whole thing of you want this person who's a provider, who shows up for you. Like my dad has never missed any of my events. And I really wanted someone like that as well, Someone who shows up for me in the masculine way that I was looking for. And you fit the bill. Plus, you're cute.
I'm cute. Yay. But I mean, what's really nice, what's really nice to hear is, well, I hear a few different things. And I think, again, for my audience who's listening, they also, a lot of them grew up in North America. I know you grew up in the East. A lot of them grew up in North America. But it's important for them to understand what a healthy idea of masculinity is, what a healthy idea of a relationship is. And I can also tell you, I wasn't always this guy I am. I was in love probably with more masculine women who provided, who took care of anything. I wanted to be that Peter Pan, who didn't have to make the money and stuff. And my own healing simultaneously, without me forcing it, made me take accountability of my own energy. And I think the same is true of a lot of feminine women, because you need the polar to attract each other, right? Like you need a strong feminine, a strong masculine that creates like a polar attraction. So if you have a woman who's embodying the masculine, she's likely to find a man who's embodying the feminine, right. More often than not. And so even for a lot of you who are listening, a lot of you who identify as the feminine or as women, if you actively just do your healing or consciously do your healing, unconsciously the other elements of you will start to come out, like your powerful feminine energy. Because if there's something I can tell you, I know that my wife is extremely feminine. And she's very powerfully feminine. And the best part of that for me is after I started to embody my own masculine energy and I started to grow into it and understand, okay, what does this mean? What does it mean to be someone who's disciplined, committed, structured, shows up, someone who doesn't flake, someone who provides like security, etc., is that there's a lot of the other things, the flow, the trust, the spirituality, the feeling of just letting go, of relaxing, of flow, which I think I said, which I can't give myself as much. And that's why I think I was so strongly attracted to Ayesha. And what was so interesting, I just want to tell you guys really quick, is when we met, it wasn't an active or conscious choice of me to say, okay, I want to meet this person. In fact, I was going on a boys' trip with my friends, and I told them just before we got on the trip, I was like, you know what, guys? I just went through some difficult relationships. In fact, the relationship I just went through before that made me think to myself, like, how will I ever manifest someone who loves travel? Because I'm always moving. How will I manifest someone who believes she can have a family with me if I'm a man who's always moving? So then I was willing to give up everything. So I just said, while I'm just in that mode, let me take time off for myself. Let me let go. Let me love who I am and just enjoy a good holiday with my friends. And then boom, Ayesha was sitting on the seat, not next to me, but the one after. And we met on an airplane, literally. And from that point, everything was so serendipitous, including how we connected, how we worked. And I don't just think it's because we liked each other. I think it's because both of our energy, Ayesha had gone through so much of her own healing. I know I had gone through so much of my own healing. And it's because we had gone through that we became this powerful masculine, this powerful feminine, who were ready to allow each other into our lives, who were ready to commit to this higher vision. And she scared the hell out of me when she said after 3 days of us being together, she's like, I'm going to marry you someday. And I told my friends, I was like, this is a crazy girl. Please keep her away from me.
Guys, he doesn't remember what he said, but he said we would have perfect babies. And that sold me. I was like, wow.
I did say that, but that was like a joke. I didn't think she was taking it seriously, you know? But the energy is so undeniable when you have this powerful connection and chemistry that making a commitment becomes so much easier. When you have the supporting energy, and you can call it love, love is the easiest way to use it, but when you have the supporting energy of being authentic, who you are, who I am, who she is, when you have the supporting energy of us feeling like we can be our best selves with each other, then falling in love becomes easier. And then committing to that love, committing to that relationship becomes even easier. Wouldn't you agree?
No, I do agree. And I do think that, once you also believe in that letting go and believe in that sense that it's also meant for you, you stop the hunt for it, right?
Right.
Like most of us, because of like dating apps or like everyone that goes to a club, you want that hookup, you want that instant, that Hollywood love, right?
Right.
But the moment you let go and you start to believe in that sense of commitment and like when it's going to come to you, it's going to come. There's a lot of that sense where you let go of that really strengthens your power almost.
Right. It's funny, we talked about feminine, and as we said that you're very feminine. Would you say that letting go is also a very powerful like feminine energy?
I think it is. I really do think it is, because when Yats and I first met, he didn't want to be with me, guys.
Hey,
But
there's a reason. There was like, it's not just that I didn't like her, okay? Even though she scared me with the 3-day we will get married thing, and we are married. It was long distance, etc.
But it was long distance, and it just didn't make sense that it would work out, right? And at that moment, for the first time in my life, I was just like, I am done holding on to anything that is not meant for me.
Wow.
I am going to let go. If it comes back, it comes back. I've shown you my journal where I've written God, I believe in God, and people may call it the universe, God, whatever that is. But I said, whatever is, I know you know what's best, but I know what's good too. But you're always going to give me the best. So I'm going to let go. And from that moment, like, whether it's my jobs as well, like, this, the more anxiously attached I am to it, the more I'm like, I need to get this, baby, I need it. I never end up getting it. So I think that letting go thing, it's feminine, but it's of so much value to everyone out there.
Absolutely. I think, and that's the thing. I hope those of you who understand, if this is a new idea to you, I want to explain this again, that masculine and feminine energies live inside of all of us. And at different moments, we need some masculine. Like when you're in survival mode, more likely than not, you will get into a masculine energy because that's around survival, which is why, unfortunately, a lot of single parents, a lot of single mothers primarily get into very masculine spaces because they're in survival mode. They're taking care of their kids, they're taking care of themselves. But also the feminine energy of trust, faith, flow. These are things that I'll be completely honest, even for myself, I used to dance with these a lot before because I was more feminine before. So it was easier. Now it comes a little harder when I'm trying to create and build like a castle or a kingdom for us or our family or my business. That trust and faith element, I could use more, which is kind of why, you also partner with someone who can provide so much of that. But I think a lot of women could use a little more of that. So I'm going to ask you a question. If you were speaking to, all of these women like they were your best friends, because I know you speak to Nigar. He has a courtesy mention for you on here. What and how would you tell them to learn to let go a little more, to learn to trust or have faith? Like, how would you either explain that to them or give them some guidance or support on how to do it?
See, I think no one would do it if they're told to do it, right? It's this conscious thing you decide to do. But I think, like, as I was speaking to my best friend today about Nigar, about how her body has drastically even changed after getting more feminine, right?
Right.
But it's this sense of knowing that I am worthy, so why wouldn't things work out for me?
Right.
To
Right.
remind women that. Because I think in this whole rushy world of trying to prove yourself and trying to
Right.
be like, oh my God, I have to be this, I have to do this, I want to get this done, I want to look like this person, I want to look like that person. But to know that, like, if I'm so good, like, we always think, right, if this is so good, why do I have to, like, prove it?
Right.
So in that sense, when you let go, is you also trusting the world, but it's
Yeah.
also knowing you're worthy of good things.
Right.
You're worthy
Wow,
of good
so
things.
passionate,
Very
you
passionate.
smacked the table. Huh? Actually, that's such a beautiful point because when we're trying to prove ourselves, we actually don't believe in ourselves, right? Because that's why we're proving ourselves to other people and we're expecting and waiting and wanting their validation of our worth. And only that can make us feel worthy and lovable. But what happens when they don't give it to us? Then we feel
Like
unlovable.
nothing.
We feel zero.
Yeah.
So in that moment in itself, proving yourself is like earning a degree. It's like going out there and like,
Hustle.
stomping on things, hustling. Very masculine energy, right? Which becomes a very wounded masculine energy. And this comes from a lot of our core wounds. I mean, for those of you who haven't done work with me, there are these wounds that we carry deep, deep inside of us, our core wounds, which come from our childhood years, actually, and from our early experiences of love, our early experiences of lack of love, and of other people around not showing up for us. They make us feel not good enough. So then your survival response is, okay, I'm going to go out there and prove myself. I'm going to go out there and earn my love. And while you want love and you believe love exists, you don't believe you can have it. And so just as Ayesha said, you end up then going after partners, men, women, anybody, who will give you morsels of affection and pull that away. And so when they give you morsels of affection, you're like, yes, 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 my world is amazing, my relationship is beautiful. But then when they pull it away, you're completely destroyed and lost. So I really love your explanation of trust and faith. It's not something you need to push yourself to do, but what you work on yourself to believe that you are worthy, to create that sense of worthiness, trust and faith just come automatically, right?
Like, there was one thing I would tell myself, that time when we were in the long distance and we weren't talking as much, right? And I was like, oh, do I have to chase after this person and everything? But I would constantly tell myself one thing, which is really funny and very random. But you don't tell your parents or your siblings they're your siblings, right? You don't go every day wanting to prove that you're their child or you're their sibling. So why do you have to prove it to someone else? But there you know your position, right?
Right.
There's this no sense of like, I'm going to lose my position.
Right.
But why would you have that in a relationship? As like, you already know you're valuable when it comes to your parents, siblings. So in a relationship, you should also have that trust and that value, right? And a lot of that let go of my anxious attachment towards you, because I was like, if it's like, I know my position, you can't keep battling out that you don't know where you
Yeah.
stand,
And it comes back to the most important thing is, like you said, knowing your position, knowing your worth, knowing your value, doing the healing work, doing the work that, allows you to bring the best part of you and therefore bring the best part of your femininity or masculinity, whatever else, so that you are attractive to somebody else. This is one of the reasons I don't like dating apps. I mean, this is why I'll probably never get a sponsorship for a dating app or would want one. Because it's like a marketplace, you know? You're putting yourself up on social media, selling yourself to somebody else, hoping that what they see is what they want to buy. You know, it's literally like a market. And so sometimes you tell stories of yourself that are not true. And on the other end, when you tell stories of yourself that are true and people keep disliking, not liking, or not picking you, you feel bad about it. And then you want to change your story to look like something else. And that destroys someone's authenticity. It destroys your capacity to have faith. In fact, I did a research thing when I was in university about how dating apps are not just destroying our social ability because it's taking away our ability to talk and meet in person, which thank God we did. But apart from that, it's also destroying a person's self-confidence and self-image because they're constructing themselves to be so.
That's what I was going to say. Dating apps are like Jello because it'll just take the mold as to whatever you put it in, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really let you have your authentic self.
Right.
It's just you fitting into that mold of what people want to hear and what
Right.
people want to be.
Yeah.
As much as social media does that,
Right.
but dating apps, your sole purpose is to fill in that mold so that someone will love you for who you're not.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And it's, you know, I still see, as I've gone through my own shadow work, I see some of the benefits for people who have a harder time socially that dating apps do help. But then it's like you think it's solving the problem, but it's creating a bigger problem, and then it's creating themselves as a solution to that problem, is that you have to use this because you're never going to meet someone in person. Yeah. I'm so blessed and grateful that ours is an example for how serendipity works, how you can actually bump into someone. Because, you know, we met on an airplane. What are the odds? We lived in different countries, and the universe continuously kept conspiring for us to get closer and closer together, including to get married. When we wanted to get married, there was resistance from different folks in different places, and somehow everything always kept coming together. But it takes this undying belief that you are worth that much, that you will meet that person at a bus stop, at a coffee shop, at a laundromat, at anything. Which means, therefore, also that you take yourself off of those dating apps. I know that you were on dating apps for almost like a negligible amount of time, right?
For 2 hours.
For 2 hours. And I will say I've heard this story firsthand. She got on the dating apps and she was talking to the guys she was seeing on the dating apps about how much she should have been with me, but she wasn't.
And they were like, please get off the dating app. I was like, that makes sense.
They told her to get off the dating apps. And I have honestly been on a dating app one time after a breakup when I was just really looking to be validated and feel connection with. So, and then after that, never, you know, especially in that time, I've gone for long barren periods, but those barren periods, think of them as like times where you're investing in yourself. It's like when you plant a tree, you know, before it becomes a sapling, you plant the seed in the ground and a farmer pours the water on the ground. Like he comes every day, he makes sure the soil's okay. This guy can't see anything above the ground. Nothing's growing, right? But the seed is growing little roots and he can't see it, but he's investing in his future so heavily. And then he comes every day, 4 months, 5 months, 1 year, until finally he sees something come off the ground. But then it grows to a big tree or whatever and it gives him fruits. So that initial time of investing in the self when you don't see results.
And to romanticize that time, not just see that as like the plant that's not yet come up,
right,
but to see that as the tree in itself, right? Because at the end of the day, all of us are attracted to a person that's truly themselves,
right,
who's enjoying their lives. No one wants to be with like a boring, sad person who's like depressed in their house. No one wants that.
If they're rich. No, I'm kidding.
If they're rich, that's an exception, guys. But like to see that time, and like with Nigar as well, right? We both had very similar healing processes. We were both, my best friend and I were in both 3-year-long relationships, ended that, were very lost after that. But to romanticize that time when you're alone, right?
Yeah.
It's the best thing you can do for yourself.
That is one of the nicest things I've heard. My entire job is about teaching people how to fall in love with themselves when they're not in a relationship. And the way you so gently put it in one sentence, it's not just about, do that time where you're alone and like, you know, just stay dedicated. That's such a masculine way of looking at it, but it's romanticizing that time. And I think that's when you actually fall in love with yourself. You can learn to love yourself in that time when you're just dedicated to showing up for you, but you learn to fall in love with yourself when you romanticize that time that you're dedicated to showing up for
like you would say that you cooked a lot for yourself.
just short story, like that time when I was alone, right? And I actively had this pattern where I was attracted to older women who are more masculine. They had their lives, whatever. Like I told you, I was like a little Peter Pan thing. This stems from my own childhood wounds of where I wanted my mother to give me the love and attention that, maybe according to my other siblings, I may have gotten, but I just didn't feel like it was enough. And so I got in relationships with older women wanting to earn that love again. And what's so crazy about patterns, it's just so insane, is that all of those women had multiple children, right? Not one of them was without a child, had multiple children. They were either single moms or worked really hard for themselves, to take care of everything. And so they basically didn't have any emotional energy to give me, which is what I kind of felt growing up as well. And I craved. So I kept attracting women who literally resembled my mother, hoping that I could prove to them that I was lovable enough and that they would finally choose me over their kids, which is what I hoped, choose me over their jobs or move to where I was, any of those things, And it never happened. And that's why when it comes back to this cooking thing, I realized that I needed to show up for myself in the way that I was wanting my mother to show up for me. And if you're listening in a relationship, you want a partner to give you a lot of love. And so the best tool that I would give you is looking at the ways you want them to show up for you, which very often is a way you wanted a parent figure to show up for you. And to do your best to recreate that in your own life, showing up for yourself in the same way that you wish your partner or whoever else showed up for you. In the beginning, it's so weird because I remember when I tried to, for me, food is my love language, as you know. My mother-in-law is, she's definitely found her way into my heart through the food. Delicious, amazing stuff. I talk about it all the time, excuse me. But I was sick, just recovering. I learned that I have to start cooking for myself. And not just cooking, but as you said, romanticizing it. So in the beginning, I was just feeding myself. And we all know when you're feeding yourself, you're not really happy with it. So then I had to create a journey with it. I bought wine, I put on music, I picked my favorite recipes, picked the best groceries as if I was going for date night to somebody else's house and they were cooking for me. And I'd like sing and cook, and I'd cook like a loving mother figure or a loving partner. And I'd put that energy into the food, wearing an apron, all of it. And then when the food was ready, I would pick it up, I would put it on the table, and I would actively say, I was just me at that point, I would say, this is for you. I cooked this because I love you. I hope you enjoy it. Tell me what it's like a curious like mother or a partner. And then I'd run around to the other side of the table, and I'd take off the apron. I'd pretend to be me again. And I'd say, oh my God, it smells so good. Thank you for cooking this for me. And then I'd take a bite and I'd be like, this is so delicious. And I did that for months, And in the beginning, it was like a weird process. I remember one time I was staying at my aunt's house and she caught me and she's like, who are you talking to? I was like, no, it's just me, I promise. But then I learned to love it. And now, when I cook for us, the occasions that I do my best. I'm a busy guy. But when I do, you see how much I love it. And I put a little music, I take my time, I ask you to either sit with me or sometimes I'm just like, leave me alone, do your own thing. Because Netflix. I love it. Yeah, I was like, go watch Netflix. And I love the journey. Is there something like that you do for yourself where you love the romanticizing that you do just for you?
I think for me, like in my past relationship, I was telling you about this earlier, I would spend a lot of money, right, even though I was the feminine. But I would spend a lot of money. And
spend a lot of money, you mean on yourself or
no,
on the person?
On the person.
Oh, you would pay for a lot of things for the partner.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was like, let's not even dig deep into that. But I think after that, right? Like I've been working since I was like 14 because I've been modeling since then. So I would make money and like my parents have been very, very nice and accommodating with my expenses. But I would spend that money. I love going to the salon. I think it's the best way to treat any woman. And I would just go to the salon, get my nails done, spend that thing on things that make me happy. And romanticizing also could come in different forms, right? For you, it was cooking. But for me, it was like, I look nice, but I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
Like, I'm not going anywhere at all. But I've had my hair curled. I've had my nails done just to sit at home and play with my doggy.
Right.
But even then, I would make that extra mile, straighten my hair at home when I have nowhere to be.
Right.
But to enjoy those things, almost like I was getting ready for someone.
Yeah.
But I was getting ready for myself and to enjoy. And now if you come between me and my getting ready time,
Oh, I'm well aware.
Yeah.
I'm well aware. And that's the best part, is that that part is sacred to you. And I understand it more each day. So I'd rather provide like a time boundary around it than to like get in the way and be like, hey, we're getting late. Rather tell you in advance. But, this is something I encourage my clients also to do, and I encourage all of them to do in terms of understanding that, okay, even though you don't have a partner, you're not beautiful, to them, or you're not beautiful just because you're beautiful to them. You're beautiful. You just highlight that when you're with them because you think they'll enjoy it. What if you learned to enjoy it? Then you'd want to highlight it more because you are beautiful. So during the pandemic, I used to encourage a lot of people on the Gauntlet, the program
Right.
that I do. It's like an 8-week deep healing program. I used to encourage them to put on lipstick, to curl their hair, because they weren't going to the office.
Yeah.
And they were like, if I'm not going to the office, I'm sitting in my sweatpants and I'm not making the effort. So I said, make the effort for you. And it's such a beautiful thing that when they did it, they naturally felt more feminine. They naturally felt more appreciated. They naturally felt more loved. And that's because it's so beautiful that when you do that just for yourself, you stop looking at someone to do it for you. And that's when someone comes along,
Of course.
wanting to tell you about it, right?
Yeah. And one of the best experiences I've had is during your retreat in Bali. You remember one of those days you were like, okay, girls, go have girl time now. And we all
Right.
decided to get ready in the same room.
Oh, yeah.
And it was
yeah.
amazing because everyone was going that extra mile,
Right.
but there was no one there to see them
Right.
except themselves and for
Right.
them to enjoy it. So I really enjoyed that because it shows that, these women who stepped into the retreat, who were very
Right.
masculine, some of them who disliked me for being extra feminine, but for that whole aspect to be them just being themselves, and they look so beautiful, right?
Yeah.
There's this effort they're making for themselves. And then even, if you keep like doing your hair, doing your makeup, at one point, you're just enjoying the process for you. Whether you have a partner, whether you're impressing someone, no, you're going to go into Sephora or whatever and
Right.
pick up products for yourself because it's going to
Right.
make you
Yeah.
happy.
And I didn't even think about that time at the retreat. At first it was so nice that you joined us, but my wife wasn't a participant in the retreat, but she was the head of the girls getting ready and like loving themselves time, because she's so feminine, she's a model, etc. And they still talk about those things. You created such beautiful friendships from there. And I will say, before we're coming close to the end here, but I will say before we go that this is why I am forever grateful that I have you in my life and in our lives and even my family's life, because you contribute and give something that I have not been used to getting or having or created for myself, and it inspires me to become a better version of myself. So when we're talking about commitment, and we talked about commitment this whole time in different ways, commitment to the self is the biggest. But in a relationship, when you're your most beautiful self and you see somebody else inspiring you to be your most beautiful self, who doesn't want to commit to that? Who doesn't want to stay to that? So I have one last question for you before you go. And that's not, what are you cooking today for dinner? Because I am so excited. But more importantly, I know how much you love relationships. I know how much you, especially as women, I think it's natural for women to give relationships almost their all, because biologically also they know that they're creating this relationship for a sense of security, for a sense of safety for their families, everything. So it's programmed. What do you do for yourself to make sure that you don't lose yourself in this relationship? Because I have also said this to you, that when you do lose yourself, we all have our moments of when we mess up, mine. But when you lose yourself, I can see your energy coming to hold on to the relationship tighter. And then it's not as attractive. So what do you do actively for yourself to not lose yourself in a relationship?
I think for me, with time, I've learned how to deal with it, because when you're also in a relationship and there's so much love, it's something you get obsessed with, right?
Right.
It's also like when a mom just has babies and her whole world becomes like the babies. It's like that.
Right.
But for me, I think one thing that I've done is that I've started to put more energy in me. Like, for example, like going to the gym, whether or not you're coming,
Right.
like I'm going because that's for me.
Right.
Cooking is something I enjoy, whether it's for you or not. I
Right.
enjoy it, so I put my time there. Then, like, my work holds its like space in my heart, which is very important to me.
But
and
you
know
don't
this.
become dependent on it also, which is important,
Yeah.
right? You don't let, if you don't have enough work or you don't get paid enough, you don't let that destroy you.
No, of course not. And of course not because even my work, it allows me to like not be dependent in it fully. But even if my work did allow me to be dependent, it's not the main part of me. It is at the end of the day a part of me,
Right. It's
which
a
you
part
are
that
too, right?
contributes, right? It's a
Yeah.
part that contributes to you, but it's not everything, right? Because there are again a lot of like, the people I work with who, because they don't have the relationship, they use their work. I mean, work we use as survival, right? And we live in this, commercial world where if you don't have money, you're nobody. So then we feed into the system of only trying to make money, and women become more masculine by
Right.
surviving and lose the beauty within them. So, what is one last thing that you would say to them as a piece of advice for them to find themselves, love themselves, and therefore, by doing that, these two important, allow someone they can commit to?
I think I would say once you do find yourself and like find the person that you truly are, you're automatically gonna fall in love. Whether that's with another person or with
Right.
yourself, you're gonna fall in love. And like whether it's small things, pampering yourself, getting those sheet masks, putting it
Right.
on, these small things you do for yourself will you to love yourself. And once your world's open to love, right? Whether it's to
Right.
yourself or to someone else, you'll automatically attract it back, is what I
Yeah.
feel.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. That's why I married her. So before I go, come here. I want to say thank you to you. We've been so formal this whole call. Come here, come here, come here. She can sit. I knew she was going to sit on my lap. That's why I adjusted my seat. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for showing on this call to provide all of my audience with so much of your value. They see it. I'm always so like formal that now they can see this is what I actually have in my life.
No, he's
And
very playful.
we're missing our doggy, and I'm grateful for everything we have. I really wish this upon everybody who's looking for it, because I know what it's like to go through that life when you're hard on yourself, you're shaming yourself, and you almost like destroy most of what you have. And I don't want that for any of you. I want you all to find love within yourself and then to find it around you. So I will say goodbye to them now. I will thank you for being here. Thank you, Ayesha, for coming on the call.
Thank you for having
if-
me. I'd love to come back.
hint, hint. If you like this, please like and subscribe to our podcast. There's so much more of this that's coming up, more playful stuff, more guests, more stuff around like where and what we can really use to turn our wounds into wisdom, because that's what's really, really important. And at the end of the day, I just want to share what I have truly with you, because that's what I made a promise to a mentor once. And I said that everything I learn and I grow from, it is my diligence and my responsibility to give that back. And I'm blessed that I love doing it. I love making a job out of it. I love giving it to you all. I love you all. Thank you so much. And please like and subscribe to these podcasts. Also, if you're ever interested in working with us on like the Gauntlet, or which is a deep 8-week healing program, or anything else, always feel free to message and reach out. There's no harm in ever reaching out. I love you guys. And we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.